Hi everyone, it's Ed from Runnable. I hope you've been enjoying this lovely weather that we're having here in the UK. In fact, that reminds me, somebody posted a comment that they go running with an umbrella. And I'm thinking, actually, at the time I thought that would sound a bit odd, but now I'm thinking it makes perfect sense given this weather. Although in the wind you might take off. But yeah, anyway, we're not, it's an English trait to talk about the weather. I want to talk about something far more interesting today. I've done a comparison between two shoes, the Nike Alphafly 3 and the Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris. So I've done what I think is a decent comparison of the two shoes. And at the end of this video, I'll make a recommendation on which of the two you should buy. We'll go into the shoes, what I liked about the shoes, what I didn't like about the shoes, what I think the shoes are good for, who I think they're good for, and we'll start with some kind of specifics around the shoes. So, start with the Nike shoe. So, in my UK size 9, and I went true to size, and I'm glad I did, this is 223 grams. And it's got a stack height of 40 millimeters in the heel, 32 in the forefoot, giving you that 8 millimeter drop. It does feel like a tall shoe, this one, but it doesn't feel unstable, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Okay, and then some specifics on the Edge Paris. So you've got a slightly lower drop in 39.5, heel stack, and you've got a 34.5 in the forefoot. So you've got quite a lot of foam in the forefoot, which is something, again, we'll talk about. Giving you a 5 millimeter drop, so it's a lower drop, and it does feel a lot lower than the 8 millimeters you get in the Alphafly. I wouldn't even say this feels particularly 8 millimeters either. I mean, it feels slightly lower to me. But this definitely feels a flatter shoe than this one, and a lower to the ground shoe, even though there's only that 0.5 millimeter in it. Where I wore them together, I definitely felt this felt higher up. It made me feel like there was more of a kind of a vertical presence in this shoe than there was in this shoe. But we'll talk a bit more about specifics later. But so they're kind of like stats around the shoe. In terms of the uppers, the Nike upper is really nice, fit me really well, very breathable, clings to the foot well, wide enough for my wide foot. I didn't feel really that constricted, but it kept me locked in really well. Didn't have any lockdown issues. I was able to cinch the laces really tight. It's got these lovely perforated laces that you can see, which when you get them in position, they stay locked. Semi-rigid heel counter, which is exactly how I like them, and minimal padding around the collar, but enough to keep you nicely locked in. So upper, top marks for the upper. I can't really fault the upper on this one. Similar with the Edge actually, slightly less volume, slightly less width in the forefoot. It has got decent volume. I didn't feel like my toes were brushing up against the material too much. Again, very breathable. Like the Nike, didn't really notice the upper, which is a really good sign. Has the perforated laces, just like the Nike, so it's exactly the same. Once you get them in position, they stay locked. Again, semi-rigid heel counter. There's a lot of similarities with these uppers actually. The tongue is very lightweight and thin, but protects your foot against the laces. So all in all, I had great lockdown. So again, top marks for the upper here. So both shoes, I think, have got incredible uppers. If I was going to give them scores, I would say both 5 out of 5. Up there with the Endorphin Pro 4 from Saucony as one of my favourite uppers. Both of them, I think, top marks. Outsole. On the surface, you would think, looking at the two, that the Nike shoe, particularly in the forefoot, has a lot better kind of coverage and thicker rubber treads, if you can see that. But actually, I found that I got better grip from the Asics shoe, and we went over some slippy ground with leaves that were wet. and this performed better for me. Obviously you've got quite a bit of exposed foam on both, so I wouldn't take either of these on trails. I think you're going to wear away this foam very quickly. But generally I think the Asics shoe outperformed the Nike shoe in terms of grip, but I think they're both very much passable uppers. Neither not quite as good as the Puma or the Adidas Continental rubber grip, but I would say Asics is not far off. Nike is a level below, but still pretty good. I did feel a little bit of slippage in this one, and I think it maybe is this red area here, which I felt was slightly less grippy because the lugs are not as pronounced, and that is exactly where I land. So that's potentially why. But I did feel a little bit more slippage than I did in this shoe. So I'd say I'd give this one 4 out of 5, and this one 3 out of 5, I think, for the outsole. I think in terms of durability, they're going to be pretty similar. Maybe the Nike slightly more durable, just because I think it just feels like a more robust shoe than the Asics shoe, but I think they're going to be fairly similar in that respect. Midsole now, that's where it gets more interesting, I think. So obviously with the Nike, you've got slightly higher stack. You've got more of a drop, so in theory you've got less foam in the forefoot. It's a kind of difficult one to kind of visualize because you've got the pods here. So even though you've got less foam there, for me anyway, in the forefoot, I'm not hitting the foam much anyway. I'm hitting the pods, and so the feel is very different. Whereas with the Nike, I feel like I'm getting a very slappy, firm-ish. It's not firm foam, but if you land where I land with where the pods are, it feels a bit firmer. It's kind of slappy, responsive, and it moves you forward in a kind of smooth, cruising way. So you get very quick turnover in this shoe. So it doesn't feel the nicest shoe to run in, but it feels a very efficient shoe to run in. And you kind of feel like you can, well, you do go fast in this shoe with feeling like you're expending very little effort. And I think that's the beauty of this shoe in its entirety. I think you can run really fast in this shoe and not feel like you're running fast. And that's how it felt to me during that 10K race I did recently in Battersea Park, and like I did on my training runs with this shoe. It feels like you're not going as fast, but when you check your watch, you're surprised about actually how fast you went in this shoe. Whereas with the Edge, you get you've got more stack under the forefoot for a start because it's got that lower drop. Okay, and it feels lovely to land here, and you get this nice kind of springy. I felt softer to me, but not mushy soft. It felt springy soft, and you get this nice springy bounce that rolls you through. You've got like an early stage rocker here, so if you can compare it with the Sky, I did a video on the comparison between this and the Sky that you can watch. This rocker starts earlier, and this for me feels like a more rockered shoe, and I get less of a kind of toe spring with this shoe that I did with the Sky Paris, but more of a rockered ride. So immediately it makes me want to increase my cadence. It makes me want to, when I hit the forefoot, land and move forward quickly. So it feels like I'm going fast in this shoe. And I am going fast in this shoe because it's so light, so nimble. The foams, this FF Turbo Piba foam, Piba foam is amazing. It's right up there with the Zoom X. The difference is I'm not engaging a lot of this Zoom X because I'm hitting the pods, right? So if you're landing on the heel here, you're getting this nice Zoom X foam and you're flowing through. Whereas me, I'm hitting the pods, so it feels a bit harsher. But with this shoe, I'm hitting the FF Turbo, and the plate is lower, you can see here. So I'm not engaging the plate as much as I say I'm engaging these pods. So it feels really nice and compressed kind of foam bouncy ride, and then you get that little pop off from the plate, which I find it really enjoyable in this, and it makes you feel like you're running really fast. So in terms of the two shoes, I actually like the experience in the Edge more than I did with the Alphafly. That said, when I actually checked, and you check the training runs that I did, when I actually checked how fast I'd been in both, and I honestly thought there is no way that I went quicker in the Alphafly. My pace over the same distance, 1.7k, my pace was a tiny bit quicker in the Alphafly, which I was like dumbfounded by. I just thought there's no way, because it felt like I was going so much faster in this shoe. And this is where I come to my kind of conclusions on the shoes, right? I feel like this shoe is a very deceptive shoe. It feels a little bit awkward to run in, but when I say awkward, it's a smooth ride, but it's a slappy kind of smooth ride, as in like you get quick turnover and it feels effortless, but you hear all this noise and it's a bit harsh when you slap down on it. But as soon as you start picking up pace, it feels better. Not very good for, when you're going slow in this shoe. It feels a bit awkward at slower paces. I didn't like it at all. And I think that's when I did my initial run in this shoe, Tally Pally. When I first started running in it, I wasn't going as fast as I perhaps should have done in this shoe, and it felt very awkward. And then by the end of the run, I'd picked up a bit of speed, felt great. And that's what I feel about this shoe. You need to be running fast to get the full benefits of it. And then it's quite smooth, unfortunately slappy. So smooth but slappy ride. I wouldn't describe this as a fun ride, but I would describe this as a very efficient and effective ride. And I think you could definitely get some PBs in this shoe. I feel like it's a very stable shoe. I have no problems with stability. I think it's slightly more stable than the Edge. And this is why I would consider this shoe at half marathon distance. I would also run 5-10k in this. But I would think the sweet spot for this shoe is half marathon distance, because I think it's a smooth, efficient, effective ride. It's also very stable, and you can just cruise in this shoe, and it requires very little effort to pick up speed. And I think over the marathon distance, where you start to fatigue, that's going to become very important. And you've got a lot of cushion in this shoe as well. Excuse me. Whereas this shoe, I actually think is quite different. I preferred the ride in this shoe, but I'm not sure I would at half marathon distance, because I feel like the base is a lot narrower. It's a less stable shoe. I feel like I would have to concentrate on my form a lot more in this shoe than I would in the Nike shoe. So I feel like for me, but it's a very enjoyable shoe to go fast in over shorter distances like 5-10k. So potentially it definitely will be my 5k shoe of choice. I think of all the shoes I've got, I think this is the fastest. Even though when we did, and you look at the pictures of my Strava, when I analysed my pace, the Nike shoe was a fraction quicker. They're very similar in pace. I just felt like I was going faster in this shoe. And that gives you that confidence, I think, that you're running well. And I think over 5k, I think that will mean, once I go further, that I only ran 1.7k. Once I go further than that, it will keep me going and keep me flowing. So I think it's a nice bouncy fun ride, and one which I think over the 5 and 10k distance, I think it would be an absolute dream to run in this shoe. As it will the Sky Paris. I think with the Sky, those of you who've got the Sky, you potentially could go further distance in that, because I think it's got a wider base, it's got a wider sole flare. As you can see, this has not got much of one at all. Watch my other video and you'll see the differences. So it's got a wider forefoot area. So for me, being a forefoot striker, it feels a lot more stable. Although that said, for you heel strikers, I think this heel is slightly wider than the Sky Paris. So, you win some, you lose some, depending on your foot strike. But for me, I think I would much prefer to take this to 5-10k distance and then use the Alphafly for longer distances, like the sort of half marathon. And so that's kind of my summary. If I had to pick one, and it's a really hard question to answer. I'm going slightly with the Nike, and hear me out here, because a lot of you will be thinking, why? I think this is the more versatile of the two. I think over those distances that I mentioned, the 5, 10K, half marathon, marathon, I could happily use this shoe for all of them. Whereas this shoe, I would be very nervous of taking this the marathon distance. I might be fine, but my suspicions are, as my form starts to suffer a bit, and you know, I'm somebody who's only been running since 2021, 22 really. I'm still kind of like learning the ropes, and I've covered a lot in those time. I've run 6 marathons in that time, countless half marathons, so I'm making up for lost time. But I know still that I have some deficits in my form when I'm in my later stages in the marathon. I haven't perfected that yet. The other distances I'm a little bit better at, but the marathon I still struggle with later on. And I think I need a shoe that's going to give me a bit more stability, a wider base, and allow me to cruise in that effortless fashion that the Nike shoe does. So I'm going to go with the Nike shoe with one caveat. Well, 2 caveats. One is the price of this is ridiculous. At £289, it's way overpriced, and this at £220 represents better price, a much better price. And the other second caveat is what distances you're going to run, right? So as I've already mentioned, if you're going to run just predominantly 5Ks or 10Ks max, this I think is the better shoe. If you're looking to target half marathons and marathons, I think this is the better shoe. If you want something to cover all of those distances, I would go with the Nike Alphafly. But, you know, there are other shoes to pick from. The Sky Paris, I think, is a real option at all those distances, and it's a slightly better, funner ride than this shoe. And the Cielo X1, as you know, one of my favourite shoes, I think is also a real good option at all those distances. It's a bit heavier at 260 as opposed to 220-ish, but it's a much funner, more enjoyable, rockered ride. So I would say out of all of those, you know, you have to think about the competition here. But for these 2 shoes, I think that's how I would summarise it. So a lot of the like analysts have talked about those runners who bound and those with higher cadence, that type of thing. I think with these shoes, you could. I mean, people say this is similar to the Vaporfly, and I think that's probably about right. I think this is probably a better shoe than the Vaporfly Next Percent 3. It's comparable with the Alphafly, but in a different way. It feels a lot, you know, when I had them both on my feet, they felt very different. There is one final area that you should consider. If you're a lighter runner like me, so I'm 63 kg, 5'9". This feels a great shoe to run in, actually. And despite what I said about form and whatever, if you've not got any form issues and you're lighter running, you may well pick this shoe. If you're a heavier runner, I think this shoe might be a better bet for you, because you'll engage those pods a lot more than I'm doing, and you'll get more benefit out, particularly if you land there with full force. So again, a lot depends on you as a runner, which one you prefer. But both great shoes. As you'll see with my Strava, you know, both, I mean, I might as well tell you now, this was 3 minutes 50 kg. This was 3 minutes 51 kg. So a marginal difference. This was marginally slower, but they were, you know, in all intents and purposes, as quick as each other. This just felt quicker. So yeah, like I said, depends on your build as well, and how much money you've got, and if you can even get hold of this shoe. And this shoe was not easy to get hold of either, so that's kind of annoying, the annoying thing about both these shoes. So there's a lot to consider there, but I'm going to side, just like I said with the Alphafly. I think it's the more versatile shoe. I'm saying that with a weary head and a broken heart, because I think this is the more fun shoe. I'm just not certain it's versatile enough for me with all the distances I like to cover. Hope you found that useful, and I'll see you soon. Bye bye. Hi everyone, it's Ed from Runnable. Yeah, this morning I'm going to do a little speed test of the Alphafly 3, which I ran in at the weekend in a 10k. I'm going to do a little speed test up against the, I think we'll go with the Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris today. I want to compare the two. I did the Edge against the Sky recently and the Edge came out on top, so quite like to see in this speed test how the Alphafly fares against the current champion, the Edge, Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris. So first of all, I'm going to do a 2k loop, exactly the same each time. And the first loop is going to be in the Alphaflys, which I've got on my feet now, so I'll show you. There you go, and yeah, we'll see how they perform. Last time the Edge edged out the Paris. Will the Alphafly fly past the Edge? We'll see. Fly over the Edge even. Anyway, let's see. Bye bye. So I'm doing a little speed test in the Alphafly 3s. Should be a bit less than 2k, maybe around about a mile, 1.6, something like that. Just a quick loop of the park. So straight away, when you use this shoe, like I do, I don't feel the kind of softness that everyone talks about, because I'm landing on the pods, I think, and the pods are a little bit firm. But they do give you a nice spring forward, which is nice. It's a very efficient shoe. It wants me to run with high cadence. I can feel that. Very much like the Edge, which I'll run with later. I mean, lots of reviewers have compared the Alphafly to the Sky Paris, and I can see why, but weirdly I think this kind of feels more like the Edge to me. It's definitely want me to pick up my cadence like the Edge does. Encourages that quick stride. Lovely morning actually, very cold but nice and crisp, perfect for running actually. And I've not got my water bottle today, for those that keep mentioning it. I'll give you a break from that sloshing sound, which I know can be a bit distracting. So Alphafly feels nice and stable. Grip's pretty good, it's not the best, but it's pretty good. It's skiddy today and I'm not slipping too much, so it's a good sign. Not as good as Continental, but and going around that bend, then I could feel it was a little bit slippy.
but they really do encourage you to get up on your toes to hit that sweet spot where the pods are. You do have to be running with good form with this shoe. I don't think it's going to take many prisoners if your form's all over the place, which is why I think for some people a marathon shoe, this is the marathon shoe, might be tricky. I've got a bit of mud coming up. Right, didn't count on this. Let's just do a quick jump. Don't worry, I'll do the same with the edge. I don't want to get these filthy because they could quite easily get filthy, these shoes. So like I said, I don't feel anywhere near the bounce in this shoe that I do feel in the, say, the Prime X or even the Sky Paris, you know, which I think is bouncier for me. What I do feel though, it's quite a efficient shoe, gets me tipping forward, pushes me forward rather than up in the air, and maybe it's just I'm not heavy enough to completely engage the pods. It's quite possible. Maybe they still need a bit of breaking in this shoe, but I don't feel the same springiness that I get with the Paris, that's for sure. But it's by no means, you know, a firm shoe. It's just about right for running fast. And that's what I'm trying to do now. Very comfortable upper, hardly notice it. Really good lockdown. Lockdown's one of the best lockdowns of all the shoes that I've tried, actually. I think I prefer the upper on this to the Asics shoes, but we'll review that in a minute. So coming to the end now, slight uphill bit and pretty good going uphill. Very efficient, feels effortless to run in this shoe, if you're at me, really does, feels really cool. So I pushed that reasonably hard, probably, you know, reasonably hard effort there. It went quite easy, felt pretty good. Now we're taking it up a hill. I want to see what this Alphafly look feels like going up hills. It feels pretty good, to be fair to it. It's a light shoe, sort of like 220 grams in my UK size 9, so considering how big this shoe is, it's not bad. Right, have a good day. That's my daughter. The one on the right, her best mate on the left. Feels good. Good for hills. Another ticks for the Alphafly. Okay, that's done. Now for the edge. So I'm now running in the Edge Paris from Asics, doing the same loop. Should be about 1.7k. They feel completely different. They feel a little bit less harsh than the Alphafly, but still firmish. But I feel like you can kind of feel that they're a bit of a flatter shoe, a bit more like a traditional flat, although they're nowhere near flat, if you know what I mean. Still got a drop, still got like that 5mm drop, I think. But they feel so nimble on your feet, much more nimble than the Alphafly, which in itself doesn't feel too bulky. Again, encourages quick turnover. And it's quite a nice shoe to run in. You got that nice pitter patter rather than a slap that you get with the Alphafly. So you don't have this horrendous noise like clopping. Although, to be fair, the Alphafly 3 is a bit better in that respect, I think. But yeah, so far feels good. I will say it feels slightly less stable than the Alphafly. It feels like noticeably narrower base to land on. I suppose that's why it feels so nimble. So it kind of puts me off using it for longer distances where my form starts to falter a little bit. Not so sure then. What a beautiful day this is. Lovely. Perfect running day. Wish my 10k had been like this. Instead of that horrendous wind. But anyway, stop moaning it. So yeah, really does feel nice to run in this shoe. I don't know, it feels slightly nicer than the Alphafly to me. But what I think the special superpower of the Alphafly is you don't feel like you're going fast, and then you look at your watch and you are. In this, you feel like you're going fast. No need to check the watch. I feel like I'm running quick, turnovers quick. I still engage in the plate, even though it's lower down. I think this has been designed for lighter runners, this shoe. Because I am engaging the plate far more than I feel like I'm engaging the plate in the Alphafly or even the pods. Coming to the waterlogged section, let's call it. Over we go, over we go. Well, it's a good workout this morning after that 10k. So, very different ride to the Alphafly. Let's see though, in terms of efficiency, which shoe is more efficient? That's the big question. Because I'm actually preferring this run to the Alphafly run slightly in terms of how it feels. But how about how quick this shoe is making me run? I think quick, but we'll see. Here we go. Home stretch coming up. Legs are feeling surprisingly good after that 10k actually. Which is a bonus at my old age. But you're never too old, are you? Let's be honest. Let's keep going. Let's give it what we can. Does encourage me to tip forward as well. There are some similarities with the Alphafly, that's for sure. Seems both are very efficient shoes. Here we go, coming to the end now. Let's stop the watch. Oh, we have a winner, but you're gonna have to watch the video to find out. See you later. Now we're going uphill in the Edge Paris from Asics. And yeah, this is an excellent shoe for going up hills. Excellent. Just like the sky, really light. Sorry. And nimble. I think these Asics shoes, the Metaspeed Paris Sky and Edge, they're made for going up hills, man. Sky even more so, but this is pretty good. So easy that was, much easier than Alphafly even. It's got a nice bounce forward and it's so light. Now we're done. So it's taken this long for me to do my final run. I've got the Edge Paris Metaspeed, Asics Metaspeed Edge Paris on my left foot, and now the Alphafly 3 on my right foot, and it's taken me this long since I did the other two runs this morning to be able to get out because of work. It's now pitch black. But just because I wanted to do this review properly and give you an idea of what these shoes feel like side by side, I thought I'd do this final video. And I think it's definitely worthwhile in this case. What struck me actually when I'm running in these two is the way they sound. When you land is kind of a bit like the way they run. And what I mean by that is the Alphafly is a bit of a monster really, and I think it's suitable for powerful runners, and when you land on it you get this big thud, the slap, whereas I think the Edge is a far more nimble shoe. I'm not saying the Alphafly is by any means bulky, but compared to the Edge, I think it probably is a little bit. And certainly this kind of pitter-patter sound that you get when you run in the edge is symbolic of how it actually feels like running in it. Feels very light, feels very kind of pitter-pattery almost, the way you run. And I think this is kind of why I feel like I'm going faster in it than the Alphafly, when I may actually not be. And it's very interesting that when I did the run test, I was a fraction quicker in the Alphafly, but it didn't feel like that at all. Felt the opposite. And I'm kind of feeling like both shoes are kind of equally good in their own way. The Alphafly is kind of deceptively smooth. It's quite a stable shoe. Yes, it makes a racket, and yes, it kind of encourages you to put a lot of force down onto those pods and spring forward. But it's a really smooth and effective and efficient shoe. And for different reasons, I feel like the Edge is equally as effective and as efficient, but in a different way. It's efficient because it's light, it's agile, it's nimble, and that pitter-patter that you can hear every time my left foot hits the ground is encouraging me to speed up, to run with a quick cadence. I think both shoes are actually quite remarkable in their own ways. I think over the 5k distance I would prefer the Edge slightly, unless I caveat that with unless it's a kind of course route where you get long stretches of straight tarmac, maybe the Alphafly then would come into its own and might be a quicker shoe. But generally, for most park runs, where you have to do turns and double back, and it's never quite straightforward, I think the Edge is potentially a better shoe, and I think it's potentially my quickest shoe of all the shoes I own for the 5k. Even for like if I was going to do a mile race, I'm not going to wear spikes, I might wear this shoe, to be honest. But then as soon as I start getting in the realms of 10k, there's a real question to be had which shoe I would go for. And it's not that straightforward an answer. Again, it would depend on how hilly the route was, how flat, how long the straights were, how many turns, that kind of thing. But the Alphafly would definitely start to become more appealing at the 10k mark than it does the 5. And then half marathon onwards, I'm looking at Alphafly all the way. And because I think it's more stable, it would be less taxing on my legs. Because as good as the Edge is, I think it requires me to have really good form because of its narrow base. And to carry on that good form throughout the run, and that wouldn't be necessarily that easy over half full marathon distance, or at least for me anyway. That's when the Alphafly would take over. Now, other things, uppers wise, there's little to choose between the two. I'm going to say I slightly prefer the Alphafly. I just think it wraps around the foot so well. It's so well designed, but there's not a lot in it, to be honest. So they're comparable. So midsole, very different. FF Turbo Plus is an amazing foam, right up there with Zoom X. It's hard to split them, to be honest. I feel like I engage the plate more in the edge, but then there's the Zoom pods that add something else to the Alphafly, so call that one a draw. And then finally the outsole, which weirdly, I didn't think I'd say this, but I think the edges, the Asics is slightly better, slightly grippier. I think the rubber compound's a bit better, to be honest. And I didn't think I would think that, because the rubber looks a bit more substantial on the forefoot of the Alphafly. Also, looks like it's got deeper lugs, but grip wise, and I've gone through some wet tarmac today, I definitely feel the Asics handled that better. So I just feel like it's something to do with that, to be honest, with the type of rubber that I do a little bit more. So all in all, yeah, I think they're very closely matched shoes in very different ways. If I had to pick one for 5k, my park runs, I'm going with the Edge. For 10k, it's really close. I think I'm saying, I'm going to sit totally on the fence and say Sky Paris for the 10k, and then everything else, half, full, ultra, I'm going with the Alphafly. Hope that makes sense to you all. And I guess the only other thing to mention is I'm a 4-foot striker, as some of you will know. When I go back on the heel with both of these, and I'm doing that now actually, just to remind myself. Yeah, there's not much difference, to be honest. I think generally the Alphafly, although it feels like a taller shoe, I'm led to believe there's nothing in it in terms of stack height in the heel. It just feels taller. I think generally speaking, I get the feeling the Alphafly is a little bit more stable, just a bit more of a substantial shoe than the Edge. But if you compare the Edge with the Sky Paris, Edge Paris with Sky Paris, it's got a bigger heel. So I think for those who are heel strikers, you might prefer the Edge than the Sky. But both are really good shoes. And so we potentially got, you know, I still need to get hold of the On Cloud Boom Strike LS, which I hear is very good, and also the Puma DV8 Nitro Elite 3, which I also hear is very good. I think Paul's mentioned that to me. I need to get hold of those, but I'm seeing these three, Sky Paris, Edge Paris, and Alphafly, for me anyway, as the quickest racers that I own. I think honourable mention to the Cielo X1, which I think is up there, and maybe an even better marathon shoe than all of them, because of how comfortable and nice ride it is and how fun it is. And over a marathon distance, you do need something that's a bit comfy and fun, because at parts of that marathon, trust me, it ain't fun. But yeah, I think that's... Ooh, nearly smashed into someone coming around the corner. I think that's basically it. Both very good shoes. Sky Paris as well. Really hard actually to determine which is better. I've done it by distance really, and I guess the only other thing we've not mentioned stability. Sorry, we have mentioned stability, durability, and I think they're pretty similar, I would imagine, in that respect. Maybe the Alphafly might have slightly, just feels like a more robust shoe than the Edge. Bigger and, I don't know, could be wrong there. I haven't run enough in either. And that's it. That's all I want to say today. I've enjoyed these runs, actually. Very nice shoes to run in. And good evening to you all. I'll see you later. Bye bye.